The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Thanks for joining us, and it is good to be back with Kim Berntson. We are surrounded by Breakroom people today.
I know.
Along Mike Catalana, who substituted in the Breakroom this week.
Yeah, and that's always a treat.
Yeah, think how our ratings feel.
And the man. What are you wearing here today?
Team USA, the greatest of all the Team USA Olympic hockey jerseys, in my personal opinion. Things not going so well so far, but there's still time. And what's up with the new jerseys? Did you watch them? Did you see the new sweaters?
Yeah.
What are they doing?
You pay more attention to that than anybody.
I know.
Sorry,
He
sports
does.
guy doesn't
No,
look
you're
at
the
shirts.
expert.
Does
What are
he?
you asking
Yeah,
us
you really
for?
You alone one sometime. Pat Duffy. Kim, you've been watching Olympics. What are the kind of things you've been paying attention to so far?
Honestly, I really enjoy the Olympics, and I can tell you that there are certain sports where I'm like, nah, I'm not going to watch that. But once it's on the TV for a little while, you find yourself getting into everything. And I don't care what you say. You can say you hate the Olympics all you want, but if that TV's on and you start paying a little bit of attention to it, you're going to find somebody to root for.
They do have a way, don't they?
Yeah.
They can sell you anything.
Your
Well,
patriotism really comes out.
It is, but I think the patriotism's down a little bit from the cool factor of some of the sports. And let's be honest, some of the stuff that's done now that wasn't done 20 years ago in the Olympics really does bring more eyeballs to it. I can remember not that long ago when the medal count was everything. And could we beat the Russians in the Olympics and all? I don't think people feel that as much. I think people root for athletes from other countries more than I think they ever did. It's good stories. It looks like the world is a little more universal that way than it is specific to country. Of course, I think people pull for the Americans and American teams. I think that's kind of nice in a way because you see great athletes in other places. I mean, there's very rarely did we ever see Americans root. Maybe like Olga Korbut would have been one of those athletes years ago, Russian gymnasts that people rooted for. I think now, don't you think people look for the cool stories and the great athletes, not regardless of the country?
Well, you have to in the winter when Norway and the Netherlands are the top two medal winners.
Well, it is weird. Like what I'm finding myself being sucked in by hockey, of course. I'm really in on that thing where you ski and then you shoot a gun.
Yeah.
What do you call that?
Biathlon.
Okay, I'm really in on biathlon. Didn't really know biathlon was a thing until I started watching guys shoot things. Also, I've been getting sucked in by figure skating. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I'm digging figure skating. I am now a figure skating expert because I have watched 4 different nights of figure skating, and I'm pretty sure I can do that.
We had once. It wasn't that long ago. Didn't we have the best biathlete in the country? It was represented down like in Honeoye Falls or something.
Yes.
We had an Olympian biathlete, but I'd never get his name.
We're talking about going back almost 30 years ago.
Oh my God, you had
Yeah, and if you finished in the top 30,
Because I did a story on the biathlon.
Stop with that.
And I have to remember, this is a long time ago, but yes, I think Rochester has a great history in the Winter Olympics between Kathy Turner, Diane Roth, Sandy Williams, skiers. I mean, we have a great history in the Winter Olympics. And
there's a kid from Gates we're forgetting that everyone keeps bringing up when we were talking about it on the show.
Yes.
That's the one.
AJ Kidd, yeah.
cover Sports Illustrated once. And we can't let the Winter Olympics pass without discussing curling, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, the curling club here, I was informed recently that there's like a couple hundred people that have gotten involved in it.
Yeah.
And I think it only increases as the Olympics happen, too. So I think it looks like fun to me.
went
I'd
and
like to
did
know
it.
what they retain, how much they retain.
It was fun. Like we went and did it as like a story and went and did it. And you can kind of drink and play at the same time. So it's got a lot going for it, curling.
You two could be an Olympian. See, that's right up your alley.
Well, I mean, there are guts on some of these curling guys. I could do that. I could absolutely do that.
This is the Rochester Press Box presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. We'll talk football next.
The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today.
Hello, this is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Talk Buffalo Bills, presented by Connors and Ferris. This is like the lull. As far as this football, it's really the whole NFL. This is now like a lull period. What's going on?
Yeah, I think teams are starting to try to put their plan together, or probably already do, reaching out to agents, even though they're not technically allowed to yet, because it is an interesting dynamic because the Combine is coming up. And we'll go to the Combine this year. Toby Matique and I are going to go. And people think it's all about what they see in the actual running of the sprints and all. What it is a big meeting. Agents are there, players, coaches, everybody meeting with the players. They're trying to formulate a plan. But in the NFL, you're going to go to free agency and maybe trades before you do the draft. So I think this is the time when they have a plan in place, but it's mostly about attacking free agency and then adjusting your plan when it comes to the draft. The Bills are a good example of that. What are they going to do at quarterback?
Yeah. Run this team. What are you thinking about in free agency?
I don't know. I mean, do you want to draft? I've seen in 5 mock drafts 5 different quarterbacks that the Bills have gotten in 5 different ways. So
I've seen 2 drafts where they've taken none.
Yeah.
Which really concerns me.
also that
Can I say something
he's
here?
raising his hand.
Mock drafts
love
are
mock drafts.
insane. Pre-free agency.
I know.
Pre-free
I've got nothing else
agency.
going on.
Once free agency,
That's
you're right.
all.
But once free agency is over, okay, let's look at the Cleveland Browns, right? They need a quarterback. But what if the Cleveland Browns say, we're signing Kirk Cousins.
Sure.
We're going to give him all this money. Yeah. Well, now that pick is in play, or they could be using it for something else. They'd probably be trading it, and it blows up every mock draft, depending on what
Those
they decide
guys
to do.
absolutely have to, those quarterbacks have to be signed before the draft, right? They all have to be someplace, don't you think?
Not necessarily.
So the teams know what to do?
Well, I think the biggest names will
like
be.
Keenum and
I would say that
Cousins.
the biggest guys are going to have jobs somewhere. They're going to start to do the whole thing of, the musical chairs. But there's going to be players out there, and there's still going to be opportunity for deals. There's going to be players. I mean, everybody talks about Foles. I don't think the Eagles are looking to trade Foles. But if they are, a trade with Foles may not happen until July or August because of Wentz's health and what ends up happening with the rest of the league. So, no, I don't think all of them have to be somewhere. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a job by then.
Kim, what do you want to see him do?
I mean, I know I might not have the most popular opinion, but I have no problem with them at this point keeping Tyrod Taylor. I know he's not your future guy, and I think everybody knows he's not your future guy, but who are you going to bring in at this point that's a veteran presence, that's not your future? Whoever you bring in is just kind of going to be a temporary guy, so you can draft somebody and bring them up through the system, not having to throw them in there like they've done in the past. I don't have a problem with keeping Tyrod Taylor. I know you're looking at me funny.
No, but you
Don't
guys
give me
have
that
to
look.
admit, and you're doing it too.
Yeah.
But you have to
Yeah.
admit that the sentiment in favor of Taylor is better now than it was at the end of the season.
I don't think he's the answer.
Wrong.
And here's your answer. John McDermott doesn't want him back. He made that clear during the year.
Who are you going to get at this
I
point
could
that
name-
you can afford?
I can name 10 players that I think they would rather have at quarterback than Tyrod.
But they're going to pay more for
Yeah.
it. Is this one of those,
how much
what's the
for it?
expression? Cut off your nose to spite your face? Because you can get Taylor for less and you're going to swallow hard and say, you know what,
How
it's
much do you
maybe the
think
smarter
Teddy
thing to do.
Bridgewater is going to cost you? How much do you think?
But you think Teddy Bridgewater at this point is going to be a good fill-in guy
But it's about-
for somebody to learn behind?
But why is Tyrod that guy if he's not running the offense that you want? And 2, you've already benched him performance-wise
Yeah.
twice in 2 years. How? How do you look at him and go, we're going to go with the 5th-round pick that threw 5 interceptions in one half? I don't think he wants to be back either. I think it's going to be a mutual split.
I'm siding with Kim mostly because I don't want you guys just to gang up on her, because I don't agree with that either.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, I try to be supportive here. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Our Buffalo Bill segment brought to you by Connors and Ferris. Like it or not, is next.
Here's the Press Box trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Credit where credit is due. 2 weeks before Isaiah Thomas came back to play for the Cleveland Cavaliers, you came out here and said they will be worse with him in the lineup. It all came true, but like it or not, what do you think of the rebuild for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
I mean, it is kind of funny. It's going to be an interesting science experiment because the league will change if this works for the Cleveland Cavaliers. You essentially brought an entire new team in, and they're playing really well right now, but you would kind of expect them to. You're in that honeymoon phase. You have all these guys trying to prove themselves to all their different players on the team. I wonder if this is sustainable, Mike, throughout the rest of the season and the playoffs, because, listen, when you brought in young talent, you sacrificed in playoff experience. And yes, we know that LeBron can be a killer in the playoffs at some point, but some of these young guys that you brought in that have only played on poor teams.
Right. You're right. They're right. Rodney Hood, these guys have not played.
Larry Nance Jr., yeah.
They have not played. It only works with this team. It only works with this guy because LeBron is that good, and LeBron for 20 games can get them ready. And LeBron is the only player in the NBA, as great as the other guys are, put him on any team in the league. Give him 20 games, and that team is playoff worthy. He is. He's that guy. As great as everybody else is, I don't even think Durant can do that. I mean, LeBron is that good all around. Brings other players in. Look, it was a chemistry issue as much as anything. I think it was a great thing. I don't think it'll set a trend that you can do this.
What I mean by trend is, listen, the Cavs did this so LeBron wouldn't walk away after there was a failure in the playoffs, right? So what I'm saying is, eventually, when you have your future Kevin Durant or your future Russell Westbrooks, guys that are holding teams hostage and go, you fix this now or I'm gone, that's what I mean by the
You're
trend.
right, except normally that's a move. In this case, it was Gary. And Isaiah Thomas, he was great with Boston, but man, he's gotten some bad advice and made some bad decisions and said some things.
Yeah, let's keep his mouth shut.
He comes into the Cavs and he's ripping Kevin Love. Look, everybody, it's almost like, I think with LeBron, like somebody says something about your sister, like I can say it about my sister, but you can't. All of a sudden, Isaiah Thomas shows up and in a week he's ripping Kevin Love. I think they wanted him out, and so far so good for the Cavs.
Kim, like it or not, for the person who still wants Tyrod Taylor to play, Johnny Manziel's future.
Johnny Manziel's future. I mean, is it any surprise to anybody that he's trying to kind of come back and, say, look at me again? He doesn't have a future in the NFL. I mean, he couldn't even make it in the Canadian Football League. I don't know if he's trying to be inspiring to people or what his angle is here, but he's not going to be anything.
I mean, he floats out the bipolar thing.
Right. I don't know. He's just a guy who's had a lot of issues, and if it is the bipolar thing, then so be it, but it's not going to help his chances of getting back into the NFL.
Yeah. You know what's funny? They said that he's going to report to a spring league that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Brett Jackson played in that same spring league last season.
Yeah, and try to get back in. The only thing I think about Manziel is I don't know if he has any future in the NFL. He's going to have a lot to prove. But the one thing I heard that might have registered with him was when he basically said his parents were embarrassed by him and they would talk to other people. If that doesn't wake you up a little bit at the moment of clarity where you go, my parents are saying, like, what do we tell people, like, when people are saying these things about? They were embarrassed by him.
Well, his father went public. Remember, he says, I fear for my kid's life when this all started to unravel.
Yeah.
Quickly, last words of like it or not, the lease agreement for the Rochester Red Wings?
Well, I'm glad it got done. The Red Wings were never leaving. I think it's been a political embarrassment. And you go down the whole line of what politics in this area has done to pro sports teams. We have an arena that needs tremendous work and no lease with the Amerks, and we have a soccer stadium that has basically been empty. Politics has not served sports fans well. I'm glad the Wings got the lease done. I never thought they were going anywhere, but the fact that it got stretched out and even a thought that they would leave, I think was embarrassing to everybody.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next.
How we doing? Got the usuals.
The usuals.
The usual?
You know it.
Your usual.
Cream and sugar, caramel.
Large dice.
At Dunkin' Donuts, we'll make sure it's just the way you like it every time. America runs on Dunkin'.
Welcome back. This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Pat.
It looks like Jack Eichel's going to miss the rest of the Sabres season. And lo and behold, 2 games after he gets hurt, the Sabres, last place in the Eastern Conference, beat the top 2 teams in the NHL. You caught him sleeping. There are now idiots on Twitter saying that this team is better without Jack Eichel because he's lazy and he doesn't play with passion. Listen to me, stupid. All right? There are ways for hockey teams to win games like that. Grit. You can win gritty games with guys like Ryan O'Reilly and Baptiste coming up from Rochester and Scott Wilson putting goals in for some reason. You can win that way. It's unsustainable. It makes sense that the Lightning coming into Keith Bank Center on Tuesday night wouldn't expect that much from a backup goalie in a team that's in last place. It's an unsustainable way to win hockey games. Think back to the President's Trophy run, even in '99 when they went all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. You had guys on that team that were gritty. Your Jeff Sandersons in '99 that would pick up a puck, put his head down, and get to the net. Those were awesome plays to watch. But without your Brières, without your Chris Drury's, without your Jack Eichels, you don't win in the NHL. It's a mirage. It doesn't mean anything. And to suggest that Jack Eichel makes this team worse, what are you doing?
What accounts for that? It's across all sports. I mean, John Wall goes out, football player, baseball players, whatever. Immediately upon losing your best player, you play better. Why does it happen?
Is it the way other teams perceive? They're going to look past your team because that guy's not there, so we don't have to prepare for him to play.
And I'll say this, both of these guys are right. Kim's right because of the fact that that's the way the other teams perceive it, and Pat's right because it's not sustainable. No. It's a quick burst. You need the great players to win.
Kim.
A name everybody's probably sick of hearing at this point, LeVar Ball, father of Lakers guard Lonzo Ball. Earlier this week, he was in the news saying how Lonzo won't re-sign with the Lakers if the Lakers refuse to sign his other sons who are currently playing in Lithuania because he decided to ruin their futures by taking them out of high school and college to play overseas. This is a call out to Lonzo Ball because you need to save your future, dude. It's your responsibility at this point because your dad's not going to listen to anybody else and what they have to say about how annoying he is and how wrong he is. You have the say at this point. You are the NBA player. Your dad shouldn't have that power over you anymore. And if you want to be a superstar in the NBA, I mean, just the way we've seen the NBA change recently with all the trades and stuff like that, everybody's pretty much expendable at this point. So I'm tired of people saying they feel sorry for Lonzo Ball and how his dad handles him and his career. Step up, say something, save your future.
We have no way of knowing, but I wonder if privately they haven't had that conversation, maybe over Thanksgiving dinner or something like that.
Everybody says how different he is from his dad, but is he really? Because at this point, he's just kind of letting his dad do whatever he wants. He can speak out against his dad if he wants to. Yeah.
Frank Reich started the playoffs for the Eagles as their offensive coordinator. He told his agent, I don't want to hear anything about jobs. Now, Frank had come up for head coaching jobs before, had some interest, had some interviews that didn't come. He said he was going to go dark. He said his goal and his job was to get Nick Foles ready for the playoffs and eventually for the Super Bowl. And that's what he did. And some would say, well, it's not the brightest thing in the world because you might come up for other jobs. But he sort of closed off. And he did. And he didn't obviously get any interest. And Josh McDaniels was supposed to take the job. And then Josh McDaniels decided to pull the plug and stay in New England. And lo and behold, Frank Reich ends up getting the job with the Colts. And I think it works out exactly the way it should for a guy like Frank Reich. He even joked about the fact he wasn't the first choice. He said, hey, being a backup has served me well in my life because we certainly know what he did with the Bills. Frank Reich is that guy everybody should be rooting for, right? He gets his opportunity now. He was that way as a player. He is beloved by his former teammates. Heck, Marv Levy wrote an unsolicited letter to the Colts saying, you got to hire this guy. Bill Polian, over the top with talking about him, said he saw him as a coach someday back in 1985 when he was a rookie player. Who isn't happy for Frank Reich? He did the right thing for his current job, and it still worked out well for him. Nice guys can finish first at times.
Yeah, we always love the backup quarterback, even 20 years later.
Yeah, and he may end up being that guy, much like the guy he worked for, Doug Peterson, thought of as not the first choice and ended up working well for him.
Unfinished Business brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Kim, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Guys, the break room, all three of you.
Look at that. Part of the
Look
team.
at him trying to glom on here. Get out of here.
That's what it is. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.